What's up? Welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're going to talk about the woman in Cabin 10. She's a pretty cool girl, pretty chill. We hung out. Do you know who the woman in Cabin 10 is? I Do you even know where Cabin 10 is on the ship, or where are you? How do we even? Do you have a map to Cabin? Anyway, this is a movie. It's on Netflix. It has audio description, and it's got Keira Knightley, Guy Pearce, Hannah Waddingham, David Morrissey, and just like a couple other. Gugu Mbata Raw is here. It's not as broad of an ensemble as it needs to be. We'll talk about that. My hot take on that, but it's reminiscent of like Agatha Christie novels. So if you like that kind of thing, this is maybe up your alley. It's not an Agatha Christie novel, just to be absolutely clear. It just has those vibes. Like, you could easily swap Keira Knightley for Hercule Poirot and not skip a beat. Just change the profession slightly. Keira Knightley plays a journalist or a reporter. I don't know if there's a difference between those two, but one of those two things is true about her. And she is on this yacht, which is, my God, large, because there are enough cabins for all these people to sleep in. I thought for a while there they were on a cruise ship, sort of like Death on the Nile. No, it's referred to as being yacht. Again, my God. So, this is a giant boat for an individual to own. Now I have a lot of thoughts on extreme wealth, but so she's there because she knows this, billionaire who is, we find out, is dying, and she's stopped taking her medication and her treatment, and she's got this big announcement that she's going to make, and she calls Knightley's character in to help her brush up on this speech, and she's going to give away all of her fortune to charity. Of course, she has a husband, so played by Guy Pearce. I should say spoilers, by the way. It's a murder mystery, so inherently, most reviews in general are going to spoil something for you. It's really hard to not go into one and get some, like, because the minute you know something, you've been spoiled something. Like, the minute you read any sort of plot description, you immediately know something. So, so Knightley ends up, the girl in Cabin 10, though, is not any of these people. It's that she sees this random girl that supposedly is in Cabin 10 who doesn't exist, is not on the ship's manifest. Apparently the guest that was supposed to be in Cabin 10 canceled, but Knightley swears she saw her. There was some blood. It's not there anymore. She had interaction with this girl, and she feels like she's being gaslit into the fact that this girl doesn't exist. So what happened to this girl? Why is she the only one that saw her? Can she prove that this girl exists? That's kind of the core story, and the movie evolves from there. So now I need to go into more spoilers, because a lot of the problems that I have with the movie, I'm not gonna say I don't like it. I do like the movie. I actually think the movie is pretty solid, but there's something that keeps it from greatness. And first of all, the good things. Keira Knightley is excellent in this. I love the fact that we're giving her movies, and as far as like a Netflix movie, this could have played in theaters. This would have been just fine in theaters. I don't know that it would have lit up the box office, but years ago when we used to send more things to theaters, this is right on par with, this would open to like 10 million, 12 million, something like that at the box office, would have legged out to maybe 40 to 50 million, like 10 years ago. Now it's just a Netflix original. So the fact that it wasn't like afforded an opportunity to be sort of like a mid-gross movie and have an audience find it as anything other than just like a random streaming title, that I think we end up forgetting them. I think that's the thing about so many streaming titles, is that if they're not like a massive standout, you just end up forgetting them. So something like The Woman in Cabin 10, 5-10 years from now, I don't think anybody will remember. trying to get somebody to remember. Do you remember that movie with Keira Knightley where she was on the boat? Nope. Okay. So the failing of the movie, though, is not entirely, it has nothing to do with Knightley. Knightley is excellent here. And to be fair, the film is not directed poorly, but there's some stuff that I would have done differently. There's a reason why we now have a Best Casting Oscar, and I would put this up for Worst Casting. And it's the same sort of problem that I had with Eric Bana's limited series, Unhinged, whatever that was, he was wandering around the national forest. So when you have certain people in certain roles, it automatically draws my attention to why is this person in this movie. This movie does not have a huge cast. A lot of the people in the smaller roles are not really well-known actors. She has, for example, Knightley has this character who's kind of a friend to her, Ben. Don't know the actor. I have no idea. Missed opportunity to put an actor in there to draw attention away. We needed to draw as much attention away from Guy Pearce as humanly possible because he is by far a huge standout here, especially coming off of an Oscar nomination. Guy Pearce is even more visible. The closest people to him are not really in huge roles. The roles that like Waddingham, Mbata Raw, and David Morrissey play, being like the most recognizable supporting cast members here, are not really on his level. They've already decided to cast Pearce in this role of being the husband of the woman who's giving away her fortune. So like the most likely villain on board, it's like it's too obvious. And Pearce, it's not like Pearce is somebody who has never played a villain, so you're casting somebody against type. Sort of like with, I would say like Chris Hemsworth, when they try to do that with like Spiderhead. He's generally playing like likable characters. He doesn't play a lot of villains. So Channing Tatum, something like that we're used to seeing in these good guy roles. When they slip into the bad guy roles, it makes it kind of interesting, like Tatum in Blink Twice. So you can play around with that a little bit more. But even like Tatum in Blink Twice was supported by like a host of other dudes, like Haley Joel Osment, and it wasn't just Channing Tatum. So Guy Pearce, the next largest role to him is Ben, played by, again, who? And it needed to be somebody at Keira Knightley and Guy Pearce's level, and it wasn't. And we needed more of those people. That's what keeps happening with these Agatha Christie novels and these adaptations, is that all of the ones that Kenneth Branagh has made have had a smattering of recognizable stars across the board, starting with, of course, Murder on the Orient Express, and moving on to Death on the Nile, and then Haunting in Venice. They use broadcasting ensembles to pull attention away, so that way it's harder for you to pick out who might the killer be based on casting. I brought up Unhinged because my problem with that show and why I gave it a rotten score was I spent the whole time going, why is Sam Neill in this? This is why he's in this, because it didn't make any sense. His casting in the show, there were only like 3 recognizable stars in that show. Bana, Neil, and Rosemary DeWitt. I guess you could say, I can't think of his name, but the guy that was in Heart of Dixie and All Rise. But I wouldn't put him on the same level as the others. So again, it's pretty hard because you have like Keira Knightley and Guy Pearce, and then I feel like the other 3 are just a notch below because their careers are boosted largely by TV. They don't quite have the film roles. And there were some wasted opportunities to bring in some more recognizable faces. And there are a lot of character actors too that are really recognizable. Roles that pop up for people like Andy Serkis ends up in these kinds of things. We've been seeing a lot of Stephen Graham recently. There are a lot of people that you can put into these things just to kind of pull the attention away this needed to be that. It's not that. So the whole film, I was like, why is Guy Pearce in this movie playing the most obvious villain choice of all? Oh, yes, of course he's the villain, because who else, why else would he not be? Um, the bigger twist would have been if he wasn't the villain, and he is. So I don't really understand, like, it becomes very sort of deflating. Like, I enjoyed the ride because half of the thing is her just trying to figure out who the woman in cabin 10 was and why she's being gaslit into believing this woman doesn't exist. But once you figure out what that is, which is about halfway through the film, then it becomes sort of about Knightley's survival, because now she knows a secret. And, well, Guy Pearce doesn't want her to know the secret. And if the secret gets out, it could be detrimental, for everybody to know that he's a murderer. So yeah, it's very intriguing. It's interesting. It's a nice setup, but casting killed the movie for me in a lot of ways. I'm still going fresh on this because, like, cohesively on the story, and also for blind audiences that don't necessarily look at faces all the time. If you're just riding on this and you don't know who the cast is, it's easy to just get kind of lost in the voice if you don't like IMDb this and you're like, oh, Guy Pearce is in this. He's number 2 billing. He plays Richard. And then you find out which character Richard is and you're like, I mean, like, it's highly sus from the beginning because you have this woman who's like giving away her fortune. And when that happened, when I heard that, I was like, well, this is going to have, I don't know who the girl in cabin 10 is, but this is clearly the point of the movie, is that suddenly this woman is changing her will to give away $1 billion to charity. And the person who suffers the most from it is her husband. So we're gonna go there eventually, right? Like, one way or another, either she's lying and that's not what's happening, or she's gonna be murdered, which I was right about one of those two things. So, I mean, like, it immediately limited the possibilities, and it could have been a MacGuffin. Like, everything could have been misdirection. But, and for the first half of the movie, you are being misdirected. You are being sent down this rabbit hole of, like, is in cabin 10. Who was that? Because it's, there are other characters on the boat and it's not them. So it's like this random girl that she sees for like a hot second. And then once you find it out, you're like, well, then there's the second half of the movie. So, which is just a lot more obvious. And to be fair, I'm not sure how much they could have changed it, because once she finds out the plot of the woman, and like where she comes in, I think, she ends up having to reveal what really happened, and then there's still like the getting out of the movie. So it becomes kind of tough to say. So that in the script might have helped to kind of push that off and push that back, so that way we spend less time with Knightley just trying to like survive, and more time with okay, so we know who the woman in cabin 10 was, but now who's behind it. There needed to be a little bit more behind that, instead of, who are you? This is why you're here. Oh God, the realization. So the structure of that kind of thing is what keeps it from being like a great murder mystery, and what puts it as just sort of like fine. Like, it could have been an episode of one of these TV shows that we have on now, like High Potential or Will Trent or something like that. Just swap Knightley for one of those characters and you solve the mystery in an hour, and you're good. Or I guess those shows actually technically only run about 40 minutes. But yeah, because all of the side characters, by and large, don't matter. Like, most of them on the boat have no purpose other than to just exist. And I feel like that's a misuse. So I'm going to peg casting for one thing. I'm going to peg the script for another. The direction just kind of becomes a byproduct of that. But the first half of the movie is solid. It just, once you get there, then you're like, well, everything else from here is obvious. not just because it's what I assumed it was going to be to begin with before I was thrown on this other path of trying to figure out who this girl was and watch Keira Knightley be gaslit for an hour, but because casting from the very beginning, I'm like, why is Guy Pearce here? Why is why is he in this role? Um, and you can either do something with it, and you can be shocking, and you can sometimes we kill these people off. I have to give kudos to, I look back on it and I see it as sort of like cheap casting, but there was a movie earlier this year with Daisy Ridley, Cleaner, which had another big name in it. And that big name exits really early in the film. So it could have been one of those things where we spend the whole movie going, why is so-and-so here? And then you're like, oh no, it was sort of like a gag, well, we thought, I compared it to like Steven Seagal in Executive Decision, where you're just like, oh, so they were there to kind of pull people in, but also be a surprise, like well, this person's going to make it until that, oh, no, they're not. Like that kind of thing. That is cool. There are a whole bunch of clever ways that you can do things like that, and pull the rug out from underneath your audience. That doesn't happen. From the very beginning, if you had asked the test audience and shown them the first, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes and been like, who's the killer? Or who's the bad guy? Like that kind of thing, or girl. I think it would have been painfully obvious to anybody, and they would have all picked and pointed at Guy Pearce. He's not playing against type. He just got Oscar nominated for playing a villain. So, and he's played multiple villains throughout his career. He's not somebody who plays a whole bunch of heroes. It's not really brilliant casting. And the supporting cast has some people in the roles, though, that are like less important. And that's another thing, is that Ridley kind of needed somebody else on the ship to vouch for her. And the closest thing to that is Ben. So Ben needed to be somebody big. Ben needed to be like a Joel Edgerton, or I don't know, Ben Whishaw, somebody like that was sort of instantly recognizable, could play good, maybe could play bad, something that is a little bit mysterious too in that role, just to balance out the cast. So I can see why people don't like this, and I can see why critics are reflecting on it. But what I'm trying to reflect on specifically for my grade, if you've made it this far, then you know everything anyway. But is, first of all, the audio description is really good. There's some specificity with the girl in cabin 10 and making sure to not call her certain things. You may think that it's really obvious because she labels the girl in cabin 10 something that the girl in cabin 10 is not. So I've actually kept that part a secret. So there's a whole gag there that I haven't told you, which is actually the whole point of the movie. I would just argue that I told you the thing that's really obvious, which is Guy Pearce is behind all of it. But I actually haven't told you the whole thing. So that audio description was really clever and cleverly written. And the film is, I mean, it's breezy. I mean, I didn't have a hard time watching it. I got from point A to point B, but it's not one of those films where I'm like, oh man, I really want to see this again. Oh, I need to show this to people. Oh man, that was a great twist. I didn't see that coming. It was all the opposite. It was all like, I saw that coming. That's not a great twist. I knew that was coming, and the ending is kind of silly. Like the dead ending of this film is kind of like, what? Why would those two still be in connection? Like, why? Anyway, so, and they throw some other stuff in there, like Knightley with a backstory. This film has one random jump scare that makes no sense, because it's basically just like the film doesn't have vibes for jump scare vibes, but it has one random jump scare where Knightley remembers this thing from the past, and it's like loud and screaming out of nowhere. And she has this flashback to this like horrible thing that she witnessed recently that is supposed to color her judgment. And it's like out of nowhere. And that actually, I jumped, like legit. I was like, oh shit. Because it's in such a quiet part of the movie. And the movie hasn't done anything to earn scary movie vibes. It just throws this thing in there. There are no ghosts, there are no zombies, there are no vampires, you know, nobody's getting dismembered and chopped up into little pieces. It's not one of those. This is a like Agatha Christie fanfic, basically. You know, like what if I was Agatha Christie? What kind of novel would she have written? This is like if you ask AI, write an Agatha Christie novel. That's what she comes up with. So, yeah, I'm gonna go Girl in Cabin 10. We are fresh. We are fresh. But we're in sort of that like it was good. I liked it. Not great, just good. Would I recommend it? Yes. For the whole first half of the movie, I thought was solid. Except for the fact that I kept wondering why Guy Pearce was here, and I knew that that was going to be cleared up eventually. And then, like, the second half of the movie is just like, well, we should have shrunk this. If this is what you're going to do with it, this should have been 5 minutes. But so yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6.7 out of 10. I generally liked it enough, so it's above my margin. Anyway, check out The Girl in Cabin 10. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys on the other side.